Township of Powhatan, regular monthly meeting, January 20th, 2015, testing.
All right, I will call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the Express Times and Star Gazette, satisfying the Open Public Meeting Act. If we could please stand for a silent prayer and flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do I have a motion to pay the bills presented in proper form, signed by the director of each department and approved by a majority of the members listed on the bill list?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I can't second it without having signed my
I'll second it.
Okay, Becker?
Yes.
Slack?
Yes.
Angeli?
Yes.
Shinlu?
yes, for the ones that have been signed.
Okay, and Mayor Kirk.
Yes. Okay, public comment pertaining to agenda items. Any public comment on any agenda items? Seeing none, the attorney is not here this
He's
evening. He's sick. So we will go to the engineer's report.
I don't really have too much at all. Other than that, on Thursday, there's a county hazard mitigation planning meeting in Washington that I'll be going to with Wanda and Donnie. And that had come up about 8 or 10 years ago. We had, I think, one meeting with the county, and then it was kind of dropped. And there's actually a plan to address, if I recall, all kinds of hazards that there could be, earthquakes, even tsunamis and things like that. So it's a good savings for all municipalities that the county is willing to take the lead, and they can address all of those issues that would affect each municipality in the same way. Flooding and things like that might be different.
Should the
for each
chief go?
municipality. He was, I didn't know if
When is that?
it's Thursday.
I'm going to that.
You are going,
She's
okay.
going, yeah.
So, and that's actually all I have.
Wow, very good.
Very quiet month.
Very good.
Well, it is good.
Township council reports. We will begin with Frank.
Not a lot to report. We're going ahead with the budget working sessions today. I think the agenda says DPW. Actually, I spoke with the new chair of the land use board, and he's going to talk to us about the land use board budget as well. I did want to clarify something on the something that was said at the last meeting about what our time constraints are with respect to the budget. I think somebody mentioned something about July, and Lorraine, I asked Lorraine to look into that timing of it. I remembered a March date, and so I just wanted to clarify that. Could you speak to that, Lorraine?
Sure. The statutory introduction date is February 10th for all municipalities. The state has now pushed that back due to the state aid figures being unreleased as of yet. The revised date for mandatory introduction is March 13th. The budget adoption, which you would normally adopt your introduced budget, is normally by March 20th. That's now pushed back to April 24th. So we only have until March 13th to introduce our budget.
Thank you. Historic committee, nothing has happened. We haven't met since we last talked. That's all I have.
Thank you, Frank. Dave?
I'll start out with the Environmental Commission. We met last night for a reorg. We appointed Dr. Hernandez as our chair, and I was appointed second chair in his absence. We mainly discussed our farmland preservation plan that was put together by Susan Gruhl. The whole committee kind of thought there was a lot of inaccuracies and things that needed to be corrected, so we're going to go through it and give back council our comments on some of the things that we don't feel were correct, and then council can take them back to Susan Gruhl and see if any of the things could be fixed. Some of it was just descriptions of soil types, lines on maps and such, but there was some bigger issues. But when we get done with it, everybody's input from the commission, we'll give it to council, and then they can go from there. There was also discussion on the town garden, the community garden, just planning and such for next year. Other than that, I can't think of anything else. We spent a good bit on the farmland preservation plan. On the DPW, I don't have anything new from last meeting, other than we're going to sit here and discuss the budget a little bit and see what things we can do to trim that a little bit. And then getting over to the land use board, we had reorg again. Mr. Williver was appointed chair, and Kevin Melvin was appointed vice chair. We have 2 new professionals now on the land use board. Anthony Spacaro is our land use attorney, and Kevin Ingram from land planning and, what was that, Wendy? Wayne Ingram, I'm sorry, Wayne Ingram from engineering and land planning. He's out of Clinton, correct? Highbridge? Okay. So we have 2 new professionals on our board there. We feel as though we can make forward progress on that board now and get it more applicant friendly and go from there. We also had a cell tower application for a cell tower in Warren Glen. The cell tower was already built. It's kind of an after the fact. They needed some variances. They come before us. We had discussion, and I believe they're all squared away there. Other than that, Mayor, it's been fairly quiet otherwise.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. We'll move on to Mary Van Lith.
Okay. Lorraine, I have a question. The April 24th date, is that when we have to vote on the budget? Is that the public gets to talk about the budget? Is that the...
That would be, if you chose to adopt the same night of your public hearing, that would be both. That would be when.
So that is the public hearing now. And if we didn't vote on it that night after the public hearing, then when is the drop dead date?
It is that day.
Oh, it is
For
that day.
24.
Oh, okay.
And was there something about, you know, if we don't do it by the 13th, March 13th, do we have to republish?
If you have an amendment after then, if you introduce a budget that you then decide to amend by certain percentages of a variance, you may have to have an amendment which would then have to be advertised, and you have to have a separate public hearing on the amendment itself. If you do go beyond those statutory deadlines, then that's something that we have to answer no on that best practices survey, which could affect our
Right.
state aid,
Unless the state comes through again with another delay,
which is always possible.
has been done before. Okay, moving right along, I got a report from the Phillipsburg Emergency Squad that they have responded to 42 calls in Hohokam, and 8 of them were in our southern part of the township, because we still don't know what's going on with Phillipsburg. And I don't know if you've heard anything new, but I know I haven't. Other than another municipality. Moving right along to the police. They responded to 563 calls for service. That's from the 15th of December to the 19th of January. They issued 228 traffic summonses, and they did make 37 arrests. They investigated 38 motor vehicle accidents, and also now the traffic accident data at the Route 22 intersections will be presented by the chief.
I had that information the last meeting. People were curious about the red light cameras. You know, I got the numbers for 2014. I got here a couple minutes late, but if anybody wants to see them, they're actually right up there on the table. But I'll review them real quick. What I did was I pulled our numbers that we submitted to the state from 2010 until 2014. 2010, is the year that we didn't have the cameras. And 2014 obviously is the last year that they were operational. So I just did a quick analysis. I'll just go over them real quick, but like I said, if anybody wants to look at them in more detail, they're up there. This year, accidents went down from last year. They didn't go down a lot, but they did go down from the intersection of 22 and 519. We had a total of 28 accidents. The year prior to that, we had 32 accidents. The thing that I find interesting, though, is in 2013, we had 6 right angle accidents, which means somebody went through a red light and struck a car this way. Obviously, they're the ones we're more concerned about. They're the ones where people get hurt. Last year, in 2014, we only had 2. So it went from 6 to 2. But that was never really a bad intersection for the right angles. Prior to that, we only had 1, 2, and 2. So why we had 6 in 2013, I don't know. But we did. We had 6 of them, and we're back down to the average of 2. The bigger problem that obviously we've always had is 22 and 122. I'll give you the numbers first. In 2013, at that intersection, we had 28 motor vehicle accidents. In 2014, we had 16. So it dropped pretty dramatically. Like I said, the most important factor, in my opinion, is the right angle. We went from having 5 right angles in 2013 to 4 last year, so we went down 1. The accidents went down, the right angle stayed, pretty much in par. Those numbers are great, but what I'd like to do is maybe just compare them to before the cameras were there. I don't have all the data for 2010 as far as right angles or rear enders. Rear enders, I could tell you, have gone down prior to the cameras being there. Real quick, 22 and 519. In 2010, before the cameras, we had 26 rear end accidents. 2011, 10, 11, 16, and 13. So cut more than half at that intersection. 22 and 122 was pretty much the same result. In 2010, prior to any cameras, we had 21 rear enders. 2011, we had 23. 2011, you have to remember the cameras started there, and I think it was in November. 2012, so it went from 23 to 9 to 17 to 8. So they went down dramatically too. But just like I said, if you want to look at it in more detail, what I did was I just ran an average. There's so many different variables because you have when the program starts, you have at Route 122 when the cameras went dark. That was in November, so there was 1 month there where you didn't have the cameras. So I did put the variables on here so you can look at them and form your own opinions. But just a quick average of what I did was I took the average of 2012 to 2014. And the reason I did that was because, again, there was 122, the cameras were down, but that's when we had full year data. We averaged, in those years when the cameras were there, we averaged 47 accidents. Prior to that, in 2010, we had 85 accidents. Okay, granted, that's only 1 year. I could only get 1 year of data for, pre-red light cameras, but it did go down dramatically. It went down about 45% when you're comparing 2014, 2013, and 2012 average compared to 2010. So, like I said, you can form your own opinion about that, but if anybody wants to look at it, the numbers are up there. They kind of jump around a little bit. Like I said, there's a lot of different variables. In my opinion, they've cut down on accidents.
I have a question. Are you going to continue doing this data for those intersections now that the cameras are gone so you can still compare? Like this year, I expect it not to be too bad because some people will think they're still there.
Right.
But then, like, as people know that they're not there, like in the following years.
Well, I'm curious to see what happens because I think in the first couple months with the cameras being down, I think people still aren't sure if they're there or not. So I've been up there, I've monitored, the intersections, and people seem to be stopping for the most part. They're still stopping. There's still that omnipresence that's there because is the camera there or isn't it? I can count them. I mean, what I do this for the state every year.
I would like you to do that because I know Greenwich Street.
Greenwich Street is the problem. Greenwich Street, it was notorious 519 and 22. I think Greenwich Street is overtaking both of them now.
And that's why I'm wondering if, as people realize those cameras are not there, that they'll start doing like what they're doing at Greenwich.
I agree. But no, I can absolutely run the numbers anytime.
I would like you to do that.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions for the chief reference to this data?
There's one in the back.
No, we're
That I don't know. From what I understand, I guess there's legislation introduced. I don't know the specifics of it. I've heard rumor of what that is. But as of right now, I don't know. I was told from ATS, the company that runs these cameras, that you probably won't hear anything at all until March. But that is just coming from their side. So honestly, I don't know. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. That's a good question.
Walmart.
I think it was 2011.
2011.
I think it's 2011. Not that I'm aware of. No, I don't know what the volume is.
Chief, would it be able to, you be able to post this data online too?
Sure.
Okay. Excellent. What else?
I mean, I think it reinforces what we've been saying all along. It's revenue and safety. And I think your gut is right about the safety aspect of it.
Excellent. Okay. Sal?
Joe and I are working on the houses, you know, the dilapidated houses, and we're trying our best. Very, very difficult.
Oh, there you are.
That's it.
Thank you, Sal. One thing I did want to mention, I had incorrect dates for the Highlands comment period. Next week, I'm attending a meeting on the 29th at the county to go over some information, and then the next council meeting on the 3rd, I'd like to have our public comment period. I'll have a better idea of what they're looking for after attending that meeting next week. Our comments are due by the 27th, so that should give us still ample time to prepare that. And the other thing I wanted just to mention is Councilman Tersigni of Phillipsburg and I will be riding along with the Phillipsburg Emergency Squad probably in the coming weeks just to see a day-to-day operations of what they do. We've worked it out with Chris Lee with the department, so we'll be doing that shortly and see the kind of work that the volunteers and the professionals provide our residents, and it should be very eye-opening.
It's okay with insurance?
Yes, yeah, we have to sign a waiver, but it's, and that's all I had. So
With respect to the Highlands, I mean, I guess it's, everybody can make their own individual comments anytime now, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, generally speaking, yeah, anyone can make a comment.
and it might be helpful. I mean, if you do make individual comments, that might be good input into our comments.
Yeah. That's very, yeah. We'll move to budget discussions, and Donnie, do you want to go first for the budget discussions?
All right, thank you. Before I start into this budget, going over our revised budget, I think, talking to people after the meeting last month, I think they really don't know what they have in our road department. begin with. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Donald Grube, a resident of the township for 61 years. I've been working here for 31 years. So the only person here that has more time than me is Sal, and I'm never going to outdo him. So, but I'm also the emergency management coordinator. I was a past chief at the Huntington Fire Company. And like I said, I'm the emergency management coordinator. And I've been a volunteer fireman for almost 30 years now. I'm retired now. But that gives you some background on myself as a supervisor. We have, when I was hired 31 years ago, we had 6 employees. I was a 6th employee. And since then, we went from 6, we have 4 people left. I have 4 employees, including myself. So that makes up your road department. As far as shared services, our road department has been doing what I call shared services probably 25 years. And what I mean on true shared services, we've been cooperating with the other townships, Greenwich, Franklin, Harmony, Alpha, and ourselves on paving projects. All right. We spend the summer, they supply us with trucks and manpower, and we go to their towns using our paver, and no money is, given. There's no money exchanged, no lawyers' contracts, no engineering fees. So, in my opinion, last year we put down just about 1,000 tons of blacktop in our township, and there was no way that we could even ever get close to that without keeping this project going. And without capital, which we're going to go over in our budget here, without the capital monies to do work in our township, this project's going to fall apart. It did once already in my career, within the 31 years I was here. But I think that's the best thing going as far as our roads and, shared services. So what I want to do here tonight is originally we put our budget in last October, and we had 16 line items in our budget, and we put down what we thought was what we needed, to run our department. One thing you got to realize, the road department isn't self-funding. We're the only department that everything we do and every piece of equipment or whatever we have, we get no money towards it. We can't give tickets out. We don't have, violations through buildings, and everything that we do costs the taxpayers money. And what I want to say is, so if you cut the budget, anything in our budget drastically, it's cutting services to the town, the taxpayers. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We're probably the only department that, doesn't bring money into the town. As far as public safety, I feel our road department, like I said, I was our fire chief, and I think our road department is as much involved in public safety as the police department. Last Sunday night was a prime example of it. We were out in that ice, and if somebody wants to ride along with us one day, I'll pick you up because, you know, I don't think the people realize, you know, what they have here with 4 guys. And I'll be honest with you, throughout my career, even when we had 5 or 6 guys, we're getting as much work done and you know, as when we did it then. But, you know, another cut in our department's it's gonna devastate our department. I honestly say that. But again, you know, I know the taxes and financial problems has arisen. Since getting back, since last October, we put an original budget in. We had 1 meeting with the council, and that was it. Now, last meeting, we were made aware of that there was financial difficulties in the township, and we took that original budget and revised it. And Jeff and I, this is my assistant, Jeff Wallitz. Jeff and I, we come up with cutting another $31,000 out of the original budget that we submitted. There's still items in the budget. I know that the council, you know, with the financial difficulties they have, it's not going to consider, but we're going to go over this budget line item by line item, and it's up to them afterwards, you know, what they prioritize. Bear with this. You know, again, this is our tax money. Okay, the first line item is Public Works salary and wages. I went to Lorraine. She gave me an estimate on the salary and wages, which would be $265,000. Now that's only for, and this is another thing that we found out, that's only for 3 3/4, no, 2, yeah. The sewer budget has one of my guys in it, his salary. So this is salary and wages, $265,000, plus they got $90,000 in the sewer account. So that's our total salary and wages. The next item is Public Works O&E. And what that is, represents a cost of living, cost of day-to-day operations for the DPW. As you can see, the council can see this, it dropped from $54,500 last year to $35,000. And truly it didn't, because what we did over this past year, we found, working with Lorraine, we took some line items, sub-items out of that and put them in separately so we could keep track of them better. We found that partway through the year, we thought we had a lot of money in our O&E account, and there was other expenses that we didn't realize was in there. So what we did, we took and split that O&E account up, and I'll explain that as I go down the list. But that dropped, and it actually dropped, but it didn't drop. If that makes sense, you'll see what I'm talking about here. The next item is DPW vehicle maintenance. That was for $47,000 in this year. It was up. I increased that, and I wanted to keep that there because we actually overspent the maintenance budget last year. There was some money taken out for other purposes that shouldn't have been, but that's what happened there. And the other increase is we have a 2003 pickup truck that the bed in it is all busted up and rusted out. And we wanted to take that and buy a new bed on it and change the bed ourselves, and we don't have to have a new pickup. So I'd hope that you would consider that too. And that's in the total O&E, or vehicle maintenance, I'm sorry. The next one's snow removal, salt. Last year, we went over our salt budget by about $8,000. So I wanted to increase it to $67,000. And that's,
This 2014 number, is that actual or 2014 budget? In your
the 2,000 for salt.
No, in general, I mean, that middle column, is that budget last year or actual last year?
That's what was budgeted last year.
Budgeted last year.
And I'm sure, as I go down, I'll tell you which ones were underfunded. There's some that was,
I think that was.
they were
cut.
pretty close.
I think that was cut last year?
Which one? I'm sorry.
The salt,
Um,
I believe that was. I'm thinking 53 something.
Yeah, it started out as 55. We spent just a little under 48,000.
We spent under 48,000?
Yeah. Of course, I'm sure there's maybe still bills from December that we don't have in. I'm not 100% sure. We should have it in by now.
Salt went up this year, $5.63 a ton. So we're probably, my estimated, when I sent into the salt companies, my estimate was 900 tons. So you can see that's a good amount of money.
Donnie, that also has our hired out contractor in there too, correct or not?
Yeah, that's for,
So we could have spent theoretically 48,000 on salt, but the rest of that would have been made up by our
yeah, it's for salt.
subcontractor. Right.
Anything to do with the snow.
You follow what I'm saying?
Contractors.
That's exactly what it was.
It comes out to 60 when you add the salt to the contractor for snow removal
Yeah.
from 2014.
Yeah.
year to date.
So being that the salt went up so much, we raised that up. Again, unfortunately, we did do good this year so far, because in December, we didn't go out and salt the roads hardly at all. Now we're making up for it this month. So hopefully we can get through that with, coming under budget. Road maintenance supplies, this is for crack tar. You see us around, or the county maybe, with the hot tar machines filling the cracks in the road. We do that before we do the oil and chip programs. And, it's a maintenance expense over the years to do that. And also our cold patch, the patch that we try to keep potholes patched over the winter. That comes out of that account. I had originally in my budget $8,000. I cut that to $4,000, and hopefully that'll be enough. So that's one of the items that we cut. The next item, and I hope, I don't know if you want to go over this item by item like this. Is everybody satisfied with this? I don't want to take up.
Maybe
All right.
Just if you have questions on particular line items, or do we want to go through all of them? I don't care.
Yeah,
I was going to say, why, like, for example, in drainage, where you, from 2014, budgeted 5,000, you used 2,500 of it, and then, but yet for our 2015 budget, and you want 7,000 for it.
And I actually,
Anticipating something?
yes. Over the years, we stockpiled catch basin grates, everything like that, catch basins here. Well, over the years, we haven't been spending money, so we're out of them now. And every time we go and pave or do any kind of catch basin work, you have to upgrade them to the standards that they are now. So Cemetery Road last year, we overlaid half of it, and every catch basin, I didn't realize there was 13 catch basins on the parts that we did. We had to go out and buy 13 grates, to replace them. There was nothing wrong with the ones that we took out other than they call them a bicycle grate. They got smaller holes in them instead of a long, that a bicycle tire can go in. So that's, again, a lot of this is all state mandated. So, you know as much as anybody, you can't get away from state mandates. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of money. So that's what I was going to try to do. I planned on, if we get to our capital improvement this year, I planned on repaving the rest of Cemetery Road. So that's going to be another, there's 13 left. That's going to be another thing. And everything's so expensive anymore. So originally I asked in my first budget, I asked for 15,000. And I realized that, we couldn't do that, so I cut it back to 8. So that was part of that 31,000 that Jeff and I cut. Stone purchases. This is an item that we took out of my O&E from last year and gave it its own account because we couldn't really, how can I say, keep track of what we were spending out of our O&E account on stone. So we took it out of that and gave it its own line item. And originally I asked for $7,000 worth of stone, and we cut that back now to 5. Leaf collection, that was another thing that really surprised us at the end of the year. That was in our O&E account, and that's a $10,000 bill to get the leaves collected. And that's what actually made us go over our budget on O&E last year. So that's the same. Next item, number 9, is annual cleanup, is $12,000. I realize that they get grants. They use the Clean Community grants. This is a suggestion. If you want to save money, maybe it'd be a good idea to eliminate the cleanup for a year. We did that over, between the 31 years I was here. We did that a couple times to cancel the cleanup. I know the next time you have cleanup, you might have more because people are, stockpiling, but it's not that much more. I was really surprised. So maybe that would be something, if you actually want to cut. But it's a service too. That's up to you, and it's my suggestion that was done, since I've been here. Contracted tree services. This is for trees, problem trees in the township that we don't have the equipment to cut. Aerial stuff. Nobody goes up in the backhoes, buckets, we don't do that. If we can't reach it from the ground, put it back over the dump truck, we can't cut it. So we got to have a tree service come in and do it.
Can I have a question on that? I noticed who is it? Somebody, there's several trucks running around town.
Lose, it's the power company is doing maintenance on their right of ways.
They seem to be doing a terrific job. I haven't seen them doing that before. Is that going to make your life easier on the trees?
Oh, yeah. It's, so as of right now, we cut that. The original budget was 10,000. It's cut back to 8. And like Councilman Becker said, that they are taking care of some of the trees that we probably would have had to hire out. The next one is road improvement.
Donnie, excuse me.
Yeah.
What if we cut out Sunday cleanup week, just one day, just on Sunday?
That's up to you. I'm just, making a suggestion. One way or the other, yeah. So I just don't want to see people laid off. You know what I'm saying? That's what
Nobody.
Yeah, right.
Nobody.
Right. So, this is my input and suggestions to you. The number 11 is very important for us. It's our road improvements. The original budget that I put in, the figure was $185,000. This includes, we have an oil and chip program and we have a paving program. And that's split between these two, that figure. Now, at the end of the presentation, I have a list of roads that Jeff and I figure that we should oil and chip and the other ones that we should overlay. And that should cover us doing that this year. Again, if that capital road improvements is cut, we're going to do less road work, and the oil and chip projects are going to fall behind. As I said last year in my presentation, we're just about caught up with our oil and chip. The 1 or 2 years, we didn't do any of it. We put no money in the budget for the oil and chip or paving. And it took us, right now, I can show you, I have reports, it took us probably 6 years to catch up. So it seems like if you cut the road improvements, it really puts the township behind in taking care of the roads. I'm just about done. I got about 4 more. Public Works purchases small equipment. This is to replace some chainsaws, hand tools, anything that we break. We were going to, originally we put in $12,000 for that. And sometimes we go out and buy an extra piece of equipment, a smaller piece of equipment that we can afford. I cut that back to $7,000 in this budget here, the revised budget. Number 13, last year and this year, we put in our original budget that we wanted to replace one of the dump trucks. If you look outside, alongside our salt shed, one of our big dump trucks is sitting there. It's beyond repair. It's unsafe to use, and it's been sitting there. This will be the 2nd year. In lieu of that, before in our original budget, we weren't aware of the financial difficulties that the town had. So we put a purchase of a dump truck, but we went from a full-size single axle dump truck to buying an International TerraStar for, 4-wheel drive. What this is, it's a smaller dump truck, but it's bigger than a Mason dump. In our opinion, Jeff and I, we wanted to try this because with that truck being out of service last year and this year, we're using our mason dump to fight snow, and we're killing the truck. It's just not made for it. And at the end of this year, we're going to need a new dump truck and a new mason dump. So sort of combine that, and that cut the cost. This truck here with snow plows, salt spreader, everything set up is $119,000. A new full-size truck is probably $160,000. So there's quite a savings going to the smaller truck, and I think it would work out good for us.
Can I ask another question there about that?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I mean, what was the contractual cost of the snow plowing where we contracted out? It was about $12,000 or something like that?
About that, yeah.
And these trucks are expensive, and $12,000 doesn't seem like that much money for contracting out. I'm wondering whether it'd be wiser to contract out more snow plowing and buy less equipment.
Well, then you have less equipment the rest of the year to do your work with. You know,
You have enough. I mean,
we're relying on the other townships to haul blacktop for us. I just said that.
right.
And we could never afford to have 100,000 tons of blacktop trucked into you, not using the other townships and our trucks. So that truck, you know, isn't sitting, isn't sitting there. That we need that to actually haul, you know, stone and whatever we're doing during the year.
How many trucks do we have?
We would have 4 full-size dump trucks then, or not 3 full-size trucks, dump trucks, the mason dump, and if we buy this, obviously I know we can't buy it this year. If we go with that in-between size truck, that would eliminate, you know, replacing that other full-size truck.
So how many trucks how many of what kind of trucks do you have?
I have full 3-size dump trucks, and I have
2 pickups?
1 sitting in it over there. So we originally started with 4 full-size dump trucks.
So the 4 includes the one that's just sitting there? It's 3 without the one
Right,
that's sitting there?
right.
And
Now, we have a mason dump.
3 working dump trucks plus the mason.
plus the mason, plus how many pickups?
We have 2 right now. We're going to get rid of the other one that we,
You have a mason dump if you guys want to take a look at it out back,
No, I understand, that's
Other
not
one.
included in your 3.
pretty much.
Now, we have to buy a body for one, right?
well, that's a suggestion, you know, that we can, there's nothing wrong with the motor, the frame, or anything else. It's just the body, you know, is shot. There's holes in it, and it's bent all up.
Bonnie, what kind of life expectancy do you guys think you would get out of this TerraStar? 10 years, 15 years?
I would say probably 10, 15 years. Hopefully it will probably last longer than 2 mason dumps. You know what I'm saying?
Right, because it's double the money of what Mason.
Well, it's double the strength. The mason dumps you're buying now, unless you go with, spec'd out trucks, they're made for, landscaper.
Right, no, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out what the cost of ownership would be per year on a truck like that, given its life expectancy.
Well, you know, I put this line item in the budget, so you just don't forget about it. We were discussing that we should just leave it out, because I know, you know, it's not going to happen this year. You know, I know that. But we discussed and I said, well, we'll put it in, and it's up to you, you know, whether to fund it or not. I'm just bringing it up that we need that. All right. The next one, I got 1, 2, 3 more. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask you, did you ever consider when wanting to put in your dollar amount for it about any kind of like lease purchase?
That's up to you. Yeah.
But I mean, wouldn't that get the cost per year down?
Yeah.
But you did research that.
No.
Well, we did the trackless machine too.
Yeah, we
Well, not that. I'm talking
lease
about
purchase
We lease
is,
purchase, we had figures on the truck and the trackless machine.
right, but just the truck that's just showing up there.
Mhm.
You didn't look into anything specifically for it, so you have no figures for us?
No. No, we wouldn't have the figures right now.
I mean, I think he's giving us a good idea of what the costs are. I mean,
this is,
purchase
The
or,
outright cost.
or borrowing or whatever, it's a pay me now, pay me later issue.
Well, that's true, but I'm
You're
just
gonna
trying
pay,
to,
you're gonna pay eventually.
I'm just trying to think of a way that possibly they could get what they need without being hit really hard.
well, that's up to you, and I wish you would consider that then. You know, I think you'd even consider, you know, purchasing an in-between truck like that. And I know that International has lease purchasing. I know that, but we didn't really get the figures for that, because I think that we didn't think we could fund this year.
Donnie, real quick, where's the leaf collection for the township? As far as the,
Collections?
yeah, it's Shimer, Parkside, Alpha Annex, and,
In the country, pick up bags.
Yeah, we pick up bags.
okay,
And
On the county roads, you know what I mean?
Okay.
They have them out.
gotcha, okay.
Do you need a big truck while we're doing it on road? We can take them off.
I'll get a bag. Did quite a few trips.
Okay,
all right, number 14. It's a proposed. This was put in actually not last year. I think this is a new proposal. To use the leftover stone and stucco, or to stone or stucco the front of the DPW garage. That's laying out back, and we got it in containers. Originally, in the first budget, I believe I had $11,000. I think that you have a proposal to put that stone or stucco on the garage for $7,000. In the meantime, I found that all the weather stripping around the garage doors and all the door seals on all the overhead doors and all the garage doors into the building are all rotten. Okay, when we get if the wind's right and it's snowing out, we get 10 inches inside the door. The snow blows underneath the doorways, so you know that's a great heat loss that you have. All of the entrance doors are all rusted and rotten. You know, by next year they're going to be falling off the hinges. So, you know, there's going to have to be some maintenance done there. Total price of that would be about $9,000. New garage modifications. Again, last year I proposed this. It's a project we started in 2007. So it's a 7-year-old project, and the project proposed to complete this project is to insulate and put heating in the back garage. At 2007, we were renting a garage up in Alpha that got so expensive that we decided to build a new garage and put heat in it. Well, they built a new garage and never put heat in it or insulated it. And every year, that is why some of my maintenance cost is up, because we store our, sewer equipment that had pumps and things. We try to drain them in that unheated garage. We don't have room for our dump trucks to store them after a storm. What happens there, we come back, a rainstorm or whatever, and the salt is wet inside the bed of the truck. You put it inside and it freezes. Then you come back to go out again, and it won't come out of the truck. So you got to dump it, scrape it out, and all that. Plus, we have a roller that we had maintenance on this year. We tried to get all the water out of it, and we had, damage from frost. So we're storing equipment outside, in the cold, or they're undercover, but still they're in the cold, and it's taking their toll on. And the last thing I noticed, this isn't going to happen either. We asked to make a block part of our garage into a sort of a break room that we could put an air conditioner in it, and it'd give us a place to keep the computers clean and cool, and us to have a place that we can come in and sit and have our lunch. And the 100-degree days, to sit there and actually have a comfort.
You haven't gone over to use the police?
No.
Because they offered it to you.
No, we aren't going over there. So that's, again, from my original budget that I submitted in November, we cut $31,000. That's the best that I feel that we can do without, really hurting what we've been doing the last couple of years. And I really think that, we've been doing good the last couple of years with our road improvements. We're just about caught up. And it seems like, it takes about 5 years if you miss 1 year, not doing your projects to catch up. So that's, if anybody has any questions. I have a question for the committee. What is the status on this purchase of the track machine? Now,
Of what?
the track machine that we were going to purchase last year. I mean, it was all approved, and the only thing that happened was the paperwork got tied up in the lawyer's office.
Well, that wasn't the only thing that happened. Another thing that happened was we lost red light camera revenue of $600,000 or so.
Yeah, we were going to at least purchase that machine, right? We had $90,000 in the budget to begin with, and then you were going to at least purchase the rest and purchase the machine.
All I'm saying is a lot of plans got screwed up when we lost the red light cameras.
Well, I'm just asking, what's...
The money's still allocated as a line item.
Okay.
So, it is still there.
But we may need to
Yeah.
allocate it to, for example, road improvements to 175. And we may need some of that for that. I don't know. It's early yet, but, you know, like you said, I mean, we hate to have to lay people off, and if we have to lay people off, fewer laid off is better. And sometimes, you know, we have to make tough choices.
Lorraine, is there any surplus money left?
In our current fund?
In-
In our current fund, surplus in our
Yes.
current fund? Yes.
How much?
Just a little under $1 million.
250,000.
A million.
No,
Million?
just under a million.
Why could we use that money?
We are using that money. We have about 700,000 of that in our budget already.
We can't use all of it.
If we use 700,000 out of $1 million, then we only have 300,000 for 2016. That's not sustainable.
And I'd argue that we shouldn't use that much of it.
That much money.
Because, I mean, what's going to happen next year? We can't use surplus, we can't continue to use surplus for ongoing expenses because there won't be any surplus. There won't be anything for emergency there.
We have,
Does anyone have any other questions for Don?
John, I just want to say I
Sorry.
appreciate, you know, the work you do, and I think you've laid this out very well, and I understand where you're coming from. Just that, you know, I'm not sure we can, I'm sure we can't give you everything you put down.
Yeah, I realize that. I thank you for listening to this, and hopefully the public will know where their money's going also.
I'm sure they appreciate hearing it too.
All right.
Thank you, Donnie. Thank you. All right, next, we're going to bring up our new Land Use Board Chairman.
There isn't much to report. We have two new professionals. Mr. Slack brought it to everybody's attention. We sat down, Wendy and I, and we looked at the existing budget, and we were able to make some cuts. $300 from miscellaneous from $600. $75 for computer supplies down from $150. Dues and publications, $150 down from $450. Office supplies down to $200 from $300. The bigger cuts were for the attorney and for the engineer. They're from $1,250 down to $11,000, and the engineer from $4,500 to $3,500. Now, with the new engineer and attorney, after the interviews, the rates are cheaper. And for example, the attorney who will come and do a meeting, it's $250, and that's his flat fee, whether he's there for 2 hours or 10 hours. And that was more reasonable, far more reasonable than previous. He also doesn't charge for phone calls unless it's a substantial phone call, you know, from like an applicant's attorney and, you know, a conference call or something along those lines. And the engineer, the same thing. They're not going to nickel and dime us. So keeping that in mind, I think overall, unless we have a lot going on, you know, the budget's probably going to be, I don't know about considerably less, but less than last year. Now, what we're going to do is try to keep the meetings to somewhat of a minimum and collectively put, you know, applicants together for one meeting and have a little bit longer meeting than, for example, just a resolution and have everybody come in and pay the attorney and the engineer to sit there just to hear somebody's resolution. So, and the engineer and the attorney are on board with that. That's what Wendy and I have worked toward and what we've got so far. I want to thank Wendy for helping me get acclimated and doing a good job and preparing this.
So, right now, I do believe we have 2 meetings a month.
Correct.
Could you go to 1 meeting a month?
Well, that's going to be entirely up to what's needed. As applicants come in and stuff comes before the board, we're going to, like I say, try and push them together so we don't have to pay those fees.
I just remember 1 meeting a month, and then if there was another meeting needed, because of some applicants, they would pay for everything to have that meeting.
Well, that might be true, but
So you don't do that anymore?
No.
obviously.
no. We're going to try and get it back to maybe 1 meeting a month or whatever it takes, but I don't want to limit myself to just 1 meeting a month and then, not do an adequate job.
Do you know how many applications there were last year
No, I do not.
for the board?
Wendy, do you know?
Pretty much one application a month.
Well, yeah, but the applications run into potential.
Yeah, it depends on what the application is.
Right. It could become extensive. Right.
Anyone else have any questions for Wayne?
Is the attorney certified?
Yes, he is. That was one of the first things we checked.
If we have no other questions, thank you, Wayne. Would you be able to make copies of that document that you have and just give that to us just for our budget purposes?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, just throw them in our boxes.
Okay.
Okay, can I just ask that the court, I saw Cindy earlier, and the deal with Greenwich hasn't happened yet. It's going to get delayed, I heard. But my understanding is we're doing stuff for them already.
Well, we have done things for them because all their tickets and everything, right? Got that all organized?
Yeah, but there's some other issues that Kevin had notified us about today that I think are going to delay it
Okay.
further. I'm not sure you didn't see that email from Kevin. Did you see the email from Kevin?
No, I've got
Okay.
some emails, but not that one.
Okay. In executive session, I'll bring them up. Okay. Resolutions authorizing submission of a grant application for the South Warren Municipal Alliance. Is there a motion for that?
I'll move it.
It's just asking for money, right?
Yes.
I second it.
Okay, Becker?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, ordinance 14-01, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank.
It's 15.
15, sorry. Do I have a motion to open that for a public hearing?
I'll move that.
Second.
Aye. Does anyone have any comments on ordinance 15-01? See none, do I have a motion to close and
I move that we
adopt?
close public comment and adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Becker?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Angeli?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motions to authorize me to execute an application for funding for the South Warren Municipal Alliance. I'd hope that you do that after the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we got it.
Second.
Becker?
Yes.
Black?
Yes.
Yes.
Angeli?
Yes.
Yes.
And mayor's appointment?
Yes, I'm going to reappoint myself to the Land Use Board. We left that off for the reorganization meeting. So there's no motion for that. General public comment. Is there any general public comment? If so, please come up. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Mike Newman from River Road. I was listening to some recordings from past meetings, and there seems to be some discussion about the concept of a new ordinance banning parking in the public right-of-way along River Road. A number of the residents of River Road are quite concerned about the impact that'll have on our properties and our rights to use the public road that we pay very well in taxes for, to keep plowed, to keep mowed, to keep paved. And I wanted to ask what the main goal of such an ordinance would be. We've been there for 25 years. We've never had any parking problems on River Road. Our friends across the street, their family's been there 125 years. They've had no problems with parking. Our neighbor 2 houses up, her family's been there 200 years. They've had no problems with parking along the road. So we're trying to figure out what's motivating this idea now that there is a problem, and how you're planning on moving ahead with that.
Thank you. Do you have anything else, or we'll?
If you could, someone
we'll
could
do
address.
comment, and then we'll address all your comments, and then we'll address them.
Okay. Okay. I had heard on the tape that there was discussion about whether this would be south of Carpentersville or whether this would be south of Creek Road. And one of the comments was that there's concern where a railroad has 2 turnoffs in their property just south of where Sue Shire lives, and concern about the garbage that had been there. There are now no dumping signs that council approved, and I think that's really helped that situation quite a bit. But if there's problems with people parking on the railroad bed itself, then certainly that's something the police can come and take care of. The railroad is happy to see that happen. But then there was something on the tape saying, well, that there are problems north of Creek Road as well. And I'm certainly not familiar with those, especially in my neighborhood. We've run into situations where our neighbor, Mr. Hernandez, has tried to enforce a no parking zone on the railroad's property that he doesn't own. It's in the right-of-way of the town, and he has claimed that he owns that property in front of where he has his land at 301 River Road. South of the creek, he also claimed for years that he owned the railroad's lot 10, the entire railroad track itself. Certainly, the newest surveys show that that was a fallacy. So we're concerned that Mr. Hernandez doesn't want any cars anywhere near his properties. Unfortunately, my entire property is 60 feet wide. Many of the other properties are very small. Once you start getting up into the camps area north of Carpentersville, people don't even have the little driveways we have. The only place they can park is in the town's right-of-way, many of them entirely on the pavement. And we see the same on Mount Joy Road. We see the same in some other roads in the community. And if you start down the slippery slope of telling residents that they can't park anywhere in the town's right-of-way, you're selectively enforcing something like that, making it very, very difficult for us to have normal lives. It's no good for the businesses, for the wine train, for the wineries. It's no good for the property values. If people think that there's no way they can ever have guests over, or no way they can ever have services provided. So we encourage you greatly to rethink these considerations. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to respond, I think the concept about the parking wasn't necessarily to stop trash dumping. There was significant amount of transient traffic of overnight parking, which our police chief can attest to, that we were made aware of. There was a terrible, unfortunate incident a few years ago where teens lost their lives. They were camping overnight and left there. There's every once in a while drownings overnight from the parking that goes down there. You know, it opens the township up to potential litigation when things like this happen, where people do lose their lives down at River Road. And the idea, I don't think we ever talked about restricting residents. I think it was more so, what can we do to curtail transient traffic, overnight parking? You know, and we were even talking about how we can even let fishermen still park overnight there in some type of way. So we were kind of working out loud, or thinking out loud, with ways to confront that problem. But the most serious goal is the safety down there, and that's what we're trying to fix with that. So that was. If you have public comment.
You may.
Yep.
And you're probably considering something like no parking 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. in those spots where the people are.
Yeah, I think it's still a working idea of what we want to accomplish as far as, and in certain areas we found that there's more parking than other areas, so that's probably why we were only mentioning certain sections of it, as opposed to Carpentersville, where it's more condensed housing, as opposed to other parts of River Road where it's a lot more densely populated. And you know, it has decreased a little bit, but I know that a couple of years ago, I mean, we saw a significant. It actually, I think it kind of coincided with the state parks being closed for periods of time. People would head out farther westward, and I think they found, you know, and rightfully so, a nice gem out here for, you know, scenic beauty. So I think, you know, that's what we're trying to fix.
So we just want to be sure that there isn't any attempt to try to limit the parking on the railroad's property within the right-of-way, where people have had their workers and their guests park forever.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'm Laura Altman. I also live on River Road, and I appreciate the mess that goes on there, and I do think that an effort to control garbage dumping and overnight partying of transients is worthwhile. And I wonder if that's more of a trespassing issue than a parking issue, that if people are actually trespassing on private property there, I would think that was more of a trespassing enforcement matter. But I do share my husband's concern that just declaring no parking infringes on the ability of residents to also enjoy the river. And the river is, you know, it's belongs to the people of New Jersey, and there is a lot of public property that was bought with taxpayer dollars. That area is not public, that's private. But there is further down public property. Perhaps the state might be encouraged to create some kind of parking area on public land further south so that people could access the river instead of parking along private property where it's dangerous, where the railroad goes by and might hit their cars. And I think there's a lot of solutions short of prohibiting parking that would affect residents of River Road. And it's sometimes difficult once you make an ordinance to say, oh, well, it applies to you, but not to you. You know, it applies to everybody whether they live here or not. So we're very concerned that, you know, we do pay taxes. We do enjoy living on River Road. And I, for one, like to park my car and pick wineberries in the summer. I wouldn't want to be prohibited from being able to just do a simple thing like that. People like to park their car to walk their dog. They're residents. So some residents, not just transients, like to park their car and enjoy the river. And I think if you're going to make some kind of restriction on access to the river, I think it should be very specific and limited. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other general public comment?
Hi, I'm Judith Forbes, Creek Road. I don't like the word transient. People come to the Delaware River because it's beautiful, and just because they don't live in Powhatan shouldn't mean that Powhatan Township now wants to restrict their access to the river in Powhatan. Not only the river, as was just mentioned, they walk their dogs, you park to ride your bicycles. I, for one, ride my bicycle. I go to all kinds of places where I am considered a transient, and I look for a place that's safe to park. I don't know who owns the land. I just can tell that it's not someone's front lawn. Okay, I think we have no right to restrict people in a dense state like New Jersey when they have some kind of inner recognition to see beauty. What kind of a township are we? This is not a private gated community. I think some new people, and take offense if you want, think that Powhatan should be a gated community only for either Powhatan residents or those who live in certain areas. As I've told people before, when I went to the police academy, one of my classmates was Bob Gara. He stood next to me, FG, and he told me he lived in the most beautiful, or he worked in the most beautiful township of New Jersey. And then about 15 years later, I moved here and I looked him up. And I said, you remember me? And of course he remembered me because, as everyone knows, I make myself known. But it is the most beautiful township, or one of the most beautiful townships in New Jersey. And I think it's great that other people, whether they're transients who live in New Jersey or transients who live in Pennsylvania, come here to enjoy it. And I think it should continue, we should continue to allow them to enjoy it. They don't have to leave their garbage. They don't have to leave their tires. They don't have to leave their couches. They don't have to leave their coffee cups. Okay? As far as people dying, people die lots of places. Maybe we shouldn't allow people to walk since we don't have too many sidewalks. Like even today, I almost got killed getting in my car, walking to my car from my house to come to this meeting. Someone was driving a little bit too fast on Creek Road, and it was dark out, and I didn't have a flashlight to warn them that I was walking. So I don't know that you can restrict or control who's going to die, but perhaps you can have a 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. no parking so that you at least know who's out there, and you can do whatever research you want on who's out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, in Finesville, if you were, I think a lot of you people don't know it, we have a beautiful ramp made out of stone. There's garbage cans there. You drive your rig, your pickup truck with your boat right down into the river, and you could go up and you could go down, and it is beautiful. And I encourage all of you to use it. Powhatan, we're looking forward, and we try our best.
Thank you, Sal. Sir, you just say, there you go.
Joe Torrey. I'm just here to speak on behalf of us, a taxpayer that...
Excuse me, sir, would you speak into that mic?
Sure.
Just.
How's that?
That's great. What a difference. Thank you.
No, I feel like Howard Stern. Hey, what I would like to say, and I'm not being derogatory toward the council at all, so don't take this personal. First of all, thank you, Mr. Grube, and the road crew, and all the police officers. I'm asking the council, in this day and age, jobs are tough. Please don't eliminate a job, first of all. That's what I'm asking here right now. Jobs are really, really tough. And if anybody thinks in this country right now that it's not, you're wrong, because it is. You got to be blind if you can't see it. So, I'd like to see the jobs stay, first of all. That's what I'm asking of council right now. And number two, the tar and chip Hey, don't do it. That went out in the 70s. That just doesn't make sense because I'll tell you right now, if you got a brand new vehicle, it's going to get chipped up really good. So please don't do it no more. You want to do something? Blacktop. And if you want to find a way to cut back on taxes, I know you don't want to hear it, and a lot of people in here probably ain't going to want to hear it. It all has to do with the schools. School taxes are what kill us. I know we don't, and that's the problem. Mr. Becker and I were there in June of 2013 at that school board. Hey, last time I seen or read this, Adolf Hitler ran a show like that. The administrator, the lawyer, and I hate to say it, but also the president of that administration there, I'll tell you what, they were disrespectful to everybody in that room. And they got too much power. That's where you got to go after right now, the school board. You let them have too much power, and now it went to their head. And they ain't going to stop, because that had to do with the solar field, and you could see that they had it made up in their minds that they were going to do it no matter what. What we said or what we were going to do didn't matter. So that's where you got to start. I don't care how you do it, but they have too much power. It shouldn't be that way. It should go back to the people to vote. This is a democracy. We the people, for the people, by the people, in the pursuit of happiness. That's what the Constitution says. And that's where we got to start, somewhere. And I believe in this country, and I'm an American first. And I say, vote. That's what determines it. I know the Faulkner Act says you people have the right to make decisions for all of us. Don't go that way in my book. Do it for all of us. When you make a decision, think of everyone, from a little child to a retiree, because that forces them out. When you up the taxes, it forces out the retirees. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone else have any public comment? Seeing none, we need a half hour in executive session for potential contractual. Action will not be taken. So do I have a motion for executive session?
I'll move that. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Pardon me?
That's a big one.
I'll tell you, it's horrible not having that freedom to just talk or go do my.
Yeah, go there.
I know. What's you have to look forward to when you get older.
And of course, I will never get it until,
It's fixed. All right, do I have a motion to come back into public session?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that
I'll
motion.
make that or second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Out.
What did you forget?